Can hypnotic regression truly unlock stored memories? What would you do if an alien entity asked you to follow them? Did a woman experience life on a different planet? Today, we test the believability of the alien abduction of Betty Andreasson.
Welcome to Believing the Bizarre,
Where we dive into the unknown and the unusual.
and tell you whether or not we find it believable.
That is right. Happy Tuesday. It is time for another Believing the Bizarre episode, and we have an alien abduction
What a
story
topic to discuss today.
for you today. I'm very excited. It is aliens. It's everything you want in an alien story.
Yeah, it's got aliens
It has aliens.
and spaceships and Jesus.
So you know that now.
I do, yeah.
This is our second time recording this.
Things happen, life moves on. It'll be okay. I'm
So-
excited to get into it.
Before we get into the episode, I do want to thank our newest patrons who include Vibelette, Liz, and CJ. Thank all three of you so much for joining our Patreon, supporting the podcast. It means a lot to Charlie and I. The support goes a long way, but also there's so much bonus content for you to enjoy over there on Patreon.
Yeah, you get these episodes ad-free and early.
Early and ad-free.
Big thing to stress there, ad-free and early.
Plus, we got quizzes, we have games, we watch horror movies with you guys, we review horror movies, we get quiz on our own episodes, you get bonus mini encounter episodes. So much stuff over there on Patreon. So if you're thinking about it and you're not a member yet, go check that out. With that said, let's get into this alien encounter story. All right, Charlie. So before we did this episode, did you hear about this before?
Before I heard about this for the first time from you, no, I had not heard.
Charlie's special because he got to hear
I'm special.
the first 33% of this episode that no one else would be able to hear.
It's like when you see the first half of a movie or first third of a movie on TV, and you're like, oh, I was really enjoying that, but I didn't get to finish it. There's gonna be a point in this where oh, I get to know what happens next, and that's really cool.
You just scratch the surface, which is cool.
Yeah, I didn't get that far into it, but what I did here started to get pretty intense.
So I have one source for this episode. It is a book. It is called The Andreasson Affair, the documented investigation of a woman's abduction aboard a UFO. It's written by Raymond E. Fowler, and it was published in 1994. So all the creative aspects to this, all the information, everything, I give all credit and respect to this book. If you really like this episode, go check it out because there are hand drawings. There are legitimate dialogue back and forth.
Truly incredible kind of research.
So let me give you a little breakdown of what you can expect in this episode just in terms of layout and structure.
This is our paper outline here.
Yeah, this is the syllabus at the beginning of the year.
Yes.
So we're going to talk a little bit about Betty, who is the main human in our story today. And we're going to talk about what they witness at a conscious level. And what I mean by that is for 10 years after this happened, this is what they could probably tell you about and what they thought about and things like that. And then the rest of this story is going to be what was pulled from their subconscious through hypnotic regression.
Wow. And hypnotic regression is a big thing there.
Recently, we talked about it on the Manhattan alien abduction.
Yes, that's what it was. I could not remember the name of that earlier.
The first time we did this.
Because that was a big part of that was the regression and the psychologist finding other ladies.
Well, yeah, that too. So that's the way this is going to rock and roll, and let's get into it. So let's talk a little bit about Betty. Betty considered herself a tomboy.
Tom Brady boy.
No. She would run to the nearest pond, brook, or field in rural Massachusetts. She'd run in the mud. She's just a tomboy.
Yeah, she grew up in real crucible country. She's over there, that's where we burn the witches.
This is the second time. This is the second cheat you've had. And that's still not.
I think that's the New England accent. Yeah.
It's not. At age 17, she became engaged to James Anderson, who was 21 at the time. We can just move past that detail. You don't need to.
Sleep that under the water.
Who was in the Navy. And on June 13th, 1954, they were married. And they ended up having 7 children together.
That's a lot of kids.
And they struggled a bit to find a house large enough to fit their whole family.
They did? I wonder why.
He's got to start doubling up the kids. Like, you sleep on top of this
Yeah.
one, sleeping on top of this one.
You actually get to sleep in the garage, in the car.
Quadruple bunk beds.
It's like the, oh God, it's like the Who's all sleeping together. They actually just have one big bed and they sleep in a pile.
Oh my God. The floor is just a bed, just a mattress. Just jump on it.
Yeah, that could be fun as a kid.
But they did end up finding a house in South Ashburnham, Massachusetts, and that's where this takes place.
It's the biggest house in South Ashburnham.
Biggest one. It's where all the athletes live now.
Is it really?
No.
You fucking got me.
Betty was raised Christian, and she instilled those values and beliefs in her family, and they spent every Sunday morning at the local community church. Everything was good for Betty and her family until 1966. Just a few days before Christmas, a woman pulled out of a blind side street and crashed into her husband James' car.
That's awful.
And this led to him spending weeks in intensive care at the hospital.
That's really scary for a family.
It is. It really is. And so this led Betty's eldest children, especially the oldest, Becky. And just for clarification, I do want to say Betty is the mom, Becky is the daughter.
Betty is the mom. Becky is the daughter.
Yeah, and Betty is going to be who we're talking about for 90% of this episode, but just when I'm saying Betty, I'm throwing Becky and Betty out there. I want you guys to have that clarification in your head. Because sometimes you hear a story and then you like, it makes sense at the time.
Yeah.
And then you're like 20 minutes in, you're like, wait, who's who again?
Have you ever encountered a family where every name in the family starts with an A?
Oh, no.
I've encountered that. It's like, what?
Just A.
There's
Alistair and Anderson and Andy.
Andrew.
And Annie.
Andrea. Alex.
Andrea.
Andrea.
So this led the eldest children, like I said, Becky, to have more responsibilities in the house, along with Betty's parents. Her mother and father came to help as well. So just another room. I'm sure they had a vacant room in this house,
I'm
right?
sure every room was not assigned.
Maybe they were one of those couples where like James had his room and Betty had her room, and they're like renting out James's room. They're Airbnb in his room to pay for the shit.
Just to do something.
The stage is set. We got James in the hospital, Betty with her family and her parents in one big house, and aliens are like, most witnesses possible. Let's go. Let's get to the strangeness. So it's January 25th, 1967, about a month after James's accident, who's still unfortunately in the hospital.
Wow. He got fucked up.
He got hit, yeah. It's evening time. Well, also, like, it wasn't like a Toyota Camry. Great.
These
you know
are
what I mean?
metal
Just
cars.
metal, yeah. He got a new spear for his dash. He thought it looked cool. So it's evening time. All the children are home in their PJs, ready for bed, and they're watching television. But suddenly the lights begin to flicker on and off, on and off. And at the same time, a strange pink light started shining through the kitchen window. All right, here's a quote from Betty, the mom. Quote, "Suddenly the lights were off and we wondered, what was it? By the window, there's a small kitchen window and I can see a light, sort of a pink light right now. And now the light's getting brighter. It's reddish orange and it's pulsating. I said to the children, be quiet and quick. Get in the living room and whatever it is will go away. It seemed like the whole house had a vacuum over it, like stillness all around. Just stillness." And here's a quote from Becky, the daughter. "The next thing I knew, Mom was going, shh, be quiet. There's some huge pulsating glow that was out from the kitchen. It's outside, like a large glow," unquote. So as Betty is rushing these kids back in the living room, away from this window, away from the pink pulsating light, Betty's father, who was staying with them, entered the kitchen to see what was going on. And allegedly, according to the book, here's what he wrote down on a piece of paper detailing what he saw with like shaky handwriting.
He had these thoughts. He's like, I need to document it on something.
I must, because you don't have your phone notes, you know what I mean?
That's very true.
And very in the moment for him to be like, I gotta do this. So he wrote this, quote, "These creatures that I saw through the window of Betty's house were just like Halloween freaks. I thought they put on a funny kind of headdress, imitating a moon man. It was funny the way they jumped, one after the other, just like grasshoppers. When they saw me looking at them, they stopped."
Halloween freaks is such strong language.
Yeah, I mean, what's wrong with Halloween, my man?
Put yourself in the position of this man who was probably born in the 1800s. So that already, he's got strong opinions about some things for sure. And I just think it's a way to show disdain for this.
You think he's 70 years old?
I didn't do the math.
Now, okay. How different is 1895 from 1905? You know what I mean, to be fair.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
He's from a long time ago. He's like, I burned these Halloween people on stakes.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So, as Becky, the daughter, looked down the hallway, she noticed a strange, dark silhouetted shape bobbing in front of the light source, shining through this area. And next thing she knew, everything went black.
That is so scary.
And that is the end of their consciousness. Like, this is what happened that they remember.
For 10 years, they held on to this thought. And that's the only thing that happened for 10 years.
Do you want to do another spiel about the sunset, or you want?
Yeah, no, I do. I wanted to mention that again. So one could say that the pinkish orange light could just be the sun.
And I did say, you had to be there, but I do have this spot on my couch where I have an L-shaped couch, and it's the corner where you lay. It's nice.
Yeah.
Where I have one window on the wall where it's like perfect sun right in your eyes. So I know that windows and light, there are places where it gets like that, but I don't think a sunset would cause this pulsating pink light enough to grab their attention and be like, what's happening?
You didn't mention the time. Now, this time I heard it, I'm like, maybe the sun had been set, and that's why this light is so strange.
Yeah, I think it's nighttime. I think it's dark.
I didn't catch that the first time. I thought maybe this was just like the sun was setting, this is the sunset, and maybe they're just confused. But if the sun is down, it's dark, or even twilight, even this light would be even more strange.
Well, think about this. It's New England area, which is as far, like the sun is the first to rise. And it's December. So what time is the sunset in December?
Oh, approximately 2:30 p.m.
And they're wearing pajamas. So unless they go to bed at 3 p.m., it's dark out.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I didn't even think of that last time. So that's why we should do every episode twice.
Do it everything at least one time through.
We learn more. So again, that is what they remember from the consciousness. And as I said at the top of the episode, everything else we hear, for the most part, is going to be details that were pulled from their subconscious with hypnotic regression. So Betty and her daughter Becky had hazy memories from these events. It was kind of like a dream-like thing for them. They were like, did that really happen, or was that a dream?
Yeah.
And they would have these flashback memories or dreams while they're sleeping of things that they didn't witness and that they don't remember happening.
Yeah.
But it's easy if you don't remember it to just say it's probably just a crazy dream.
I wouldn't believe any of it happened had I not if they didn't do the regression, I would believe none of this happened, because the idea that I saw a figure in my home and then went to black, I wouldn't cope with that.
Halloween freak.
Halloween freak.
So about a decade later, not quite, but in the 70s, 1974, the ever-trusted and reliable National Enquirer requested firsthand UFO stories for consideration by a panel of scientists. Now, Betty had she wasn't hip to UFOs and aliens. It's not like she was a fan. It's not like she
observing.
She didn't research UFOs. She didn't read content. She wasn't into comic books or the movies back then. It happened to someone who was not into the lore of aliens at all.
She didn't subscribe to oh God, forever ago, the UFO Weekly or whatever.
She wouldn't listen to this podcast. Let me put it that way.
Damn.
Sorry, she wouldn't. So she wasn't hip to it, but she's like, I think there's a story here. I think maybe something happened. So she was a little hesitant, but she did end up submitting vague details from what she remembered, which they denied.
Because they're vague.
Yeah, they're trying to make a story and content out of you.
It's light.
Guys? They're not trying to help you. Like, right. Halloween freaks.
Yeah, exactly.
I picture that in big yellow letterings.
Halloween freaks.
Woman sees Halloween freaks in Boston. It wasn't actually Boston. But a year later, in 1975, she read an article about the Center of UFO Studies in her newspaper. And the article stated that Center Director Dr. J. Allen Hynek, which is a key player.
Very key.
In this time with ufologists. And they were requesting UFO reports for scientific study. And this gave Betty hope. They're like, oh, maybe they'll accept my story. So again, she made a letter and gave all the details she could. And that letter got sent to MUFON, who took her story very seriously, and they decided that they'd pull those memories from her brains and would figure out what happened here. So they got the help from Harold J. Eldenstein.
Okay, what a name.
No, Edelstein.
What, he played for the
Harold
Patriots?
J. Edelstein. No, he didn't.
Edelman. That's what I was thinking about.
I know. Kent State.
Yeah, that's right. Kent State.
Who directed? Oh, by the way, shout out Joe Flacco.
Joe Flacco.
We appreciate you, Joe Flacco.
Big day for the Browns.
And Harold directed the New England Institute of Hypnosis and served as a staff member to Comprehensive Psychological Services in Burlington, Massachusetts. So he worked with Betty and Becky and conducted hypnotic regression, which is controversial, to say the least.
Some people say that it's made up or guided, at least.
It's guided. They're saying that, in that state of mind, if you can even get in that state of mind, you are pushed in directions to get out intended results rather than unlocking things that are truly there.
Yeah.
But we're going to pretend that's not true for the next 45 minutes.
I don't know if it necessarily is, because I've been pseudo hypnotized.
Yeah, you went to a whole community, right?
What? Oh, no. That was like psychics. I mean,
same thing.
Anyway,
were you at Akron?
In Akron, yeah. I went on the stage.
Yo, did I know you then?
Yeah.
Did I see it?
Maybe we didn't know each other, but I didn't stay on very long. I was like one of the first couple out.
They're like, no, we can't get you.
Well, yeah, because I couldn't fall for it completely. But some people can. And I wonder if you are able to fall for it completely, you're able to go all the way under hypnosis. I don't know how influenced you are. I think that the thoughts are coming from you.
You think there's merit to the hypnotic regressions?
I do. I really do.
So neither Betty or Becky were particularly thrilled with the idea of hypnosis, but according to the book, they were easily put in a trance within a few minutes. And I don't know if it's for the sake of privacy for Becky and Betty or if it's for the sake of keeping Harold's techniques hidden. The author, Raymond Fowler, didn't want to go into much detail about the practice. He just loosely said that there were keywords that he used and slight pressure of the hands.
He just put him in a chokehold.
He just hit him with that forearm.
He was like, well, I'm on the count of 3. 1, 2.
That's a stone cold stutter.
Let's keep it private, huh?
Don't you tell anyone. Just blood splatter everywhere. So just a quick recap before we get to the hypnotic regression. There's the lights flashing, this pink flashing lights. They see bobbing beings, and then everything went black. So here's a quote from Betty during regression therapy about what she saw. Quote, "The lights are back on, and now there are beings standing there, and they're talking with me, but not with their mouths. And they have large heads. They came through the door. They didn't open the door," unquote. So these 4 entities, single file line, followed the leader, passed by the window with the pink light. That's what the father had seen. And they came through the door.
And they phased through the door.
Like a ghost.
Like beads.
Beads in the
opening
70s.
up.
They said, hey, bro. So Betty steps back in shock, naturally, at seeing both these entities. But in that moment of disbelief, her mind shifted to her religious beliefs. And my guess is that you're so shocked to your core, you're grasping onto the things that you define
things that
you.
Ground you, yeah.
Yeah, and for her, religion grounds her. So here's another quote from Betty. Quote, "I'm thinking they must be angels because Jesus was able to walk through doors and walls and walk on water. Must be angels," unquote.
I remember the water part.
Maybe the other one was just like in the
footnotes. I didn't get the footnotes of that.
The sequel.
Yeah, the Bible too.
We are just joking. Of course, these entities did not look like anything that resembled angels. They all appeared identical, except for the leader in the front, who is a little bit taller. They was all pretty short, though. Their skin was gray, and they had large pear-shaped heads. They had cat-like eyes, holes for noses and ears, and small scar-like mouths.
Yeah, and also, I remember this. They're wearing clothes.
You asked me what they're wearing.
They're wearing clothes.
They're wearing. It was actually a really good transition that I'm sad we lost.
Me too.
But they're wearing shiny, dark blue, form-fitting uniforms with high boots.
And that's, you know what though? Because that's how you know this is a real abduction story. Because in movies, they're portrayed as being naked.
Films think that if they come in wearing shiny purple jumpsuits, it's silly.
Am I okay?
Like we have to film Michael Jackson music video.
But in real abductions, they wear clothes. So, but why is them being nude not silly? But
because they're not from here. They don't shop at Old Navy. They don't look for deals at Forever 21.
I just don't understand. Can you imagine them? We actually just need some clothes. But my point is, like, it'd be weirder if they were naked. Because they're just naked guys walking around.
I don't think if they have the same anatomy, it would be strange.
It makes more sense to me that they wear clothes. Like, what if I came in here naked and said,
"You're not an alien.
Let's do the show.
You're not an alien."
Okay, but my point is, it makes more sense for them to wear clothes.
To be clear, I know we haven't been doing video for that long. Charlie also doesn't come in wearing purple, shiny jumpsuits.
Let's test it out next week. Purple Chinese jumpsuit or naked. We'll see what happens.
They also had a patch, like an emblem, that looked like a bird with outstretched wings.
That is cool. It's a cool logo, cool branding.
Will come back into play. So despite these aliens being in front of her, Betty felt a calmness about her, almost like she's in a trance, which she probably was. Mm-hmm. And she also felt an aura of friendliness from these beings. She did not feel like she was in harm's way. Without opening his mouth, the leader, who stood about 4 feet tall, identified himself as Quazga to Betty, and that is Quazgaa for those of you that want to know.
Want to spell it out?
Even though he didn't spell it out.
No,
but maybe
just phonetically did it.
Yeah.
I am a Quazga. And she's like, "Hi, Quazga. How are you doing?"
Behind the scenes, sometimes that's what I do in my notes. I'll do it
phonetically?
Yeah. 100%. So in her mind, she could hear him say that they knew who she was and her name was Betty, and slowly the leader stretched out his hand. And for some reason, Betty took that as like, oh, I know. They're hungry.
As one does, yeah.
Trust me, though, 100%. If I have aliens coming into my house, I am not going to put food in their mind. They're just going to be like, oh, hey, yeah, our spaceship broke. But now that you mention it, yeah, I'll eat you.
It really depends on the circumstances, though. Like, where they are in the home. Like, if it's my bedroom, like, I'm gonna fucking shoot them. But if they go to my kitchen, like, I'd consider giving them food.
So anyone who wants to like attack Charlie or break into his home, just know there's a difference between the bedroom and the kitchen.
I will see it differently.
One will get you fed, and one will get you sent to heaven.
That's true.
So anyways, she was like, I'm gonna offer these guys some food, and they nodded their heads. So without missing a beat, Betty grabbed some food from her fridge, walked over to the stove, grabbed a pan, and started frying some meats.
Like, did she get some nice braciole, or like, was it sausage? Like, what'd she get?
It was probably breakfast sausage. I don't know why. I feel like, you know why? You know what? She has like a family of 15. So
yeah.
I'm just saying, if you buy like those tubes of like breakfast sausage,
yeah,
I feel like you don't normally cook it all at once.
I don't know. I feel like they don't have any leftovers.
I know. That's the biggest. That's probably the most unbelievable.
Yeah, she has food laying around.
Yeah, that's the most unbelievable fact of this episode, that there's leftover food from her family of 25. But anyway, she's cooking this meat, but she receives another telepathic message from this being, Quazga, and he told her that they cannot eat food unless it is burnt.
Oh.
And she said, bet. And she turned the heat up.
Looks like a burnt Krabby Patty.
Burn this meat.
Yeah.
And confused, the entities backed away from the stove, watching the smoke in astonishment. And they told her, they clarified that's not what they meant by food and burned. And they told her, but that is not our kind of food. Our food is tried by fire. Knowledge tried by fire. Do you have any food like that?
Yeah. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a mind puzzle. So how would you take that while you're cooking up some breakfast sausage for these aliens?
Tried by fire, I would assume you had a little bit of spice, a little kick to it.
So Betty, being a Christian, she took that as they want wisdom. They want knowledge.
Yeah.
So she strolls in the living room with them following behind her in single file.
Got to make a saving throw for wisdom, just so you know.
Okay. And as she enters the living room, she notices her family is frozen. Like time had completely stopped for them. You know, she was like, well, I'm on a mission. I'm on a mission. I can't like worry about them.
Yeah.
So she finds her Bible and she picks it up and she hands it to Quazga. And in exchange, Quazga gives Betty a small blue book.
A blue book, if you will, like a conspiracy title.
Blue book.
Mm-hmm.
So Betty watches as this alien leader holds the book in one hand and then waves his little hand over it. And when he does that, it duplicates. He hits Command C, Command P over and over again. And multiple Bibles appear and he hands them to the other aliens around him.
Jesus did that with fish.
There you go. Fish,
just saying.
Bible. And so she's watching, Betty is watching these aliens flip through the Bible. And what she's saying is that the pages are bright, bright white, like illuminating, like light is just flowing off these pages that they're flipping through.
Okay.
At that exact same time, Becky, the daughter, so Betty's daughter, regained consciousness and came out of this blackout. And she remembers being in the living room near the TV and seeing her mom, Betty, conversing with these alien beings. Here's a quote from Betty about this from the hypnotic regression. And the author also notes that while this is, like 10 years later or so, Becky is now in her 20s, but when she's talking about this while under hypnosis, it literally sounds like a frightened 11-year-old girl.
She really went back there.
Yeah. So quote from Becky, "It looks like a clay man. He looks like a clay man talking to my mom. Some kind of man creature. And behind him, right behind him toward the right, there's a little one. And there are two after him. They look like they're smooth, water on lay. And didn't take me outside or anything, but they knew that I was standing there watching them. My mom was standing there with her hand on something, and the clay form had his hand on the other part like a book," unquote.
Can I? It's actually a very scary quote. But can I take us on a little side tangent for a moment?
Sure.
So there's this. Let me get there. So there's a show, Batman, the animated series from the 90s when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. And one of the main villains
Shout out Mark Hamill.
Yeah. One of the main villains was Clayface. There's this episode of Batman the Adventures. It's about Robin. Robin living his life as a kid. And he meets this girl. He falls in love with this girl over the course of this episode. But the thing about this episode is at the end, the girl was part of Clayface.
Yeah.
And he absorbed her back into him at the end of the episode. He was heartbroken. I was devastated. And I still hold that hurt today. And the clay creature made me think of that.
Do
you know what I'm talking about? Is that why you made the face?
Did Robin have intimate relations with Clayface then?
He was like 12. They didn't have sex.
Oh, okay. Like, that's not the gotcha that Clayface thought it was.
No, he's going to jail because he's a pedophile.
Comes back into her. He's like, oh, what the fuck?
Oh, no.
Yo, you keep that. What part of Clayface was that? He's like, my pancreas feels weird.
It's just so weird because he made this like sentient being that felt emotions.
Normally, it's all of Clayface turning into something, so it's unique that it was a part of him.
It crushed me as a kid. It crushed me.
Anyway, she notices that the TV wasn't on, but it was different. She said it's like when you turn the color down so it's gray and low. So I'm assuming it's like electrical interference.
Yeah.
By them just being there.
By them or even their ship.
And she noticed the tallest one, who's still short, peer over the family that's frozen and then make eye contact with her, staring directly at her. And in that moment, her vision got fuzzy and she lapsed back down into unconsciousness.
I was resented that the tall ones were the leaders because I was never tall, so I couldn't be the leader.
Never be a leader.
Bullshit.
Never. Catch me in the back.
Fifth extra, number 5.
I'm the one that holds the leader's hairbrush. So when he wants to comb his hair back.
Hold that tall coffee. Yeah.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Betty doesn't pay attention. She doesn't know what's going on. She's reading this book. She has no idea that Becky woke up and fell back asleep. She's like looking through this blue book. The first 3 pages, completely white. There was like, the way she described it, there was silver at the top, like coils. Makes you feel like it's a notebook.
Yeah.
I don't know. There are designs inside that she was unable to describe. One of them, she said, kind of looked like a wheel.
Okay.
But she's unable to decipher it. And anyone like that you can't read a book, you close the book. She's like, cool, thanks. I gave you the Bible, you give me a book I can't read. So she looks up from the book and she gets lost in the eyes of this being, much like Clayface.
I mean, yeah.
And she noted that sometimes they were very white, very bright white eyes. And sometimes they had, the way she called it was like a black ball in the middle. But to me, it's just like an iris.
Yeah.
I don't know if she literally means like there's something in the eye or if it's just like, it looks like it has.
Sounds like she's on a trip.
Well, she will be. And this fixation on the eyes was suddenly broken by this realization of like, what is happening? So she asked the aliens, what are you doing here? And they told Betty that they came to help and asked in return that Betty help them. And she was like, okay, how can I help? I don't even know what you're offering here. And they asked Betty to follow them, to which she asked if they were of God, and that if they are, she would follow them, but warned that they better not be deceiving her.
Don't be lying to me.
And they just said, will you follow me?
Come on.
And obviously there's trance stuff happening here. She knows that she's kind of being hypnotized, staring at these eyes. And the power to resist was slipping. So again, they said, will you follow us? And she asked about her family, her children, her parents.
Yeah.
And Quazga was like, they're safe, they're fine, they're resting. There's no fear on their faces.
He's like, all good, dog.
Yeah, would you follow us? And finally, Betty gave in and agreed to go with them. So Betty agreed to follow the entities and Quazga, and Quazga instructed Betty to get in line, basically. Like, they are very, very particular about their following the leader.
Like, we really respect ducks and what they do.
Yeah,
so do that.
We're big duck fans. So she gets in line and they start moving. She says it's almost like a conveyor belt. Like, it's like she's not in line walking. It's like she gets in line with them and she realizes she's in sync with them as they're gliding.
Oh, she didn't even try. It was automatic.
Yeah, it was like she got in line and it's like kind of like an airport, those little people movers.
Oh, yeah, the moving sidewalks.
But you're gliding. And like them, she went through the door.
Okay.
So she's now there. She said her legs felt very weightless. And once she reached the backyard outside, she said it was incredibly misty, and she witnessed this oval object with a raised central portion. So it was oval, it had like long sticks at the bottom, and then there's this oval object at the top. And then we call that a UFO, ladies and gentlemen.
That's what I call it. Flying saucer.
The bottom of the craft became transparent, which allowed Betty to see inside.
Oh, that's cool.
And she noted some of the same markings and designs that she saw in the little book that she couldn't identify.
Okay.
There's some connection there.
Sure.
So Betty asked Quazga what she was looking at, and he replied that he had other things to show her and to come along.
Wow. That is the most shut the fuck up and let's move.
He's like, it's a spaceship. What do you want? He's like, come on.
You know what?
You seen E.T.?
Put himself in that perspective. Like, it's a car. Get in the car. Be quiet.
Yeah. It's not the newest car, but come on. It's got heated seats. So the ship, the bottom part, switched from transparent to silver. And once again, Quazga raised his hand, and instantly the side of the ship opened up, like a little opening in the craft. Mm-hmm. And once it opened, they all swooped inside, and Betty found herself in a small room with curved walls. Now, here's a quote from Betty on this experience. Quote, "We're in like a half bubble or quarter of a bubble room, and Quazga has withdrawn himself with the others, and they're standing over there talking. I'm just looking at this room. Something goes down on the side of the bubbles. Where the steps come up, it goes down. I feel very weightless and icky. My hands and my legs feel like they're asleep or something. And they're still talking over there, and they glance over at me every once in a while. I'm crossing my arms now. I'm tired of just standing there. I feel weightless. My feet are on pins and needles or something, even my arms and my hands. He's still talking, and about 2 or 3 of them are leaving. The door whooshed open, and they're going in, and it's closing." Unquote. So just getting a little bit of a feel of like how her body is physically feeling to being in here. Eventually, Quazga came over to Betty and brought her to where they were at. And there's a whoosh and another door open. And she said you can't see these doors before they open. It's not like us where there's a knob and you can see the frame. It's just like the wall all of a sudden is just like, it's open. It's like, oh, I guess that's where we're going.
Okay.
Be a really good escape room.
Yeah. He's like Regina George bringing her into the cool girls table.
So through that door, there were stairs. They went up. And again, she's just paying attention to her body. She noted that her waist felt incredibly heavy as they're ascending these stairs.
What an interesting sensation. Her waist.
Waist, yeah.
Yeah.
And so she's still in a single file position between these two entities and goes into another circular room. And she claimed to see boxes or something like a desk in there with really big ripples on the sides, like windows that are black and outlined in red. And they took her to the edge of the room, and to Betty's dismay, they left her there. So she's just alone in this room. She's terrified. Still feels kind of paralyzed. Like she can't really move much.
Yeah.
And she's just stuck there. And then suddenly the room gets brighter and brighter and brighter. And it feels like this light is coming from this bright wall in front of her. And she hears a voice that doesn't belong to Quazga asking her again to follow. So now it's worth noting, and I'll try to do this throughout the story. This is where her first hypnotic regression session ended.
Okay.
Like the lighting, there's a little bit of panic, and they're just like, okay.
Wow, what a cliffhanger. What a season 1 ending.
Well, they probably only had her 2 hours, and they're probably like, this is probably good enough.
Yeah.
So that was on May 7th, 1977. So almost a month later, on June 4th, 1977, is when she went back, and they picked right back up where they left off. They excelled at getting her in the trance-like state, kind of prepping her with the last thing you said.
There's no recap, really. A little quick recap.
They try. Like, based on what I was reading, they try to be like, last thing you said this. Can you go into that further? Or what are you feeling? Or what are you seeing? Or you mentioned this. And that's based on the book. I have no idea what they actually told her.
Yeah.
What they used with the physical pressure and the keywords. So the lights keep getting brighter, and eventually a door opened again. And 2 aliens glide towards Betty and take her to the center of the room. And once in the middle, she found herself sinking through an opening in the floor. And here's a quote from Betty. Quote, "I'm standing there, and we're slowly being lowered through a tube. It looks like a silvery tube, slowly lowering down. And we're stopping. And one of the beings tells me to get behind him again. And getting behind him, and the other one's behind me. And the door's lifting up. I couldn't even see the door before. The door just looked like a tube. A clear tube. I'm going through into another room that looks like a hatch or something on top there. It looks like lightning spears coming out of it. I don't know what it is, but it's there, and they're bringing me over to the other side." Unquote. Because there's going to be a lot of things, I'll just be very clear. There's going to be things that don't make sense. Because it's trying to explain something that we don't conceptualize.
Right.
Like she's using tubes and light and, lightning. But it's just trying, like, there's going to be parts later in the story where she's going to be like, there's no way to perfectly clearly say what she's seeing.
You're just trying to wrap your mind around these things in the most human way you can.
And what's so crazy is already by these descriptions that we have, it doesn't seem like this would fit in a ship that landed in a backyard.
Well, I mean, if you've seen Doctor Who, you would know that that space and time is relative. So,
okay.
The TARDIS.
So next, she's escorted to a platform that was illuminated by very bright, dazzling lights, like tons of, like the beams. Like she could see the beams of light.
That's cool.
And she was asked to get under the lights. And Betty asked, is this going to hurt? And they told her, no, it's for cleansing.
They go,
don't tell her. It's like a fucking flamethrower. It's so fun.
Cleansing fire.
I'll get someone tomorrow. We'll go to San Antonio. It'll be great.
Anyway.
So she becomes completely engulfed in this bright white light. And it doesn't hurt. It wasn't even hot like she expected it to be. It was just light all around her. And once she was done, they motioned for her to get back in the line, and they went through another whooshing door. And this room was dark, and the alien that escorted her in there gave her a white garment and was like, change. You're not wearing your shit, or we're going.
Okay.
So the white garment, she said, was very open in the front and loose around her arms, and it went down to about her knees. So she kind of like, she did it in a way to be modest, but she like put it around
Seems
her.
very 60s.
Well, it's 77 when this took place. Well, no, technically it was
in
60s.
the 60s.
Yeah, they're like, this is all the rage.
Or also, is it like a baptism where you wear white?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a good point. So once she changed, the aliens escorted her to another large, well-lit, dome-shaped room, and there was one sole piece of furniture, one item in the center of the room that immediately caught her eye. It was an elongated table, which reminded her of an operating table. And that made her shudder a little bit. She didn't like that.
Fire the sky. She doesn't know that, but fire the sky.
Yeah, she didn't like it. So a couple moments later, Quazga came back in and reaffirmed Betty's going to be okay because he could sense her apprehension. Or she felt that he could sense her apprehension. That was the feeling that she got.
She felt apprehensive. She sensed that he knew that she felt apprehensive. That's very he said, she said.
Well, she felt it, and he was like, you're fine. So I think she was like, he must be able to tell because I'm feeling it. I haven't said anything. And
I
he's
mean,
like,
you got to be on guard at this point. Like, am I going to kick this little guy?
but it's also kind of like when a dog and you're like, it's fine. It's fine. Because the next thing she knows is she's floating towards this table.
Yeah.
And she found herself on the table.
Oh.
And looking around, the alien entities are now wearing these shiny white-ish silver clothes.
You got to be a doctor.
They don't seem as clay-like anymore. But she also said it could be because of the lights in there. Like she saw them in the house, and now it's like fluorescent. I'm assuming it's fluorescent.
I probably. That feels very alien.
And they took a needle wire and they stuck it up Betty's left nostril into her head.
Oh.
For a moment, she felt pain, but one of the entities, the aliens there, just kind of like touched her head and it subdued the pain and the discomfort.
That is so reminiscent of many things we've talked about.
They told Betty that they were awakening something. And this is a weird description because she said heard, not felt. Now, it could just be the way that she's describing it in this. Again, this is hypnotic regression. She said she heard what sounded like a veil or a membrane break when they were up there. She heard it, like not felt it. She heard something break. And then they inserted a long silver needle into her navel, which is a fancy way of saying belly button.
Wow.
Again, the aliens are talking to each other and they're trying to comfort her. And they told Betty that they were measuring her for light.
That sounds just like what happened to Betty.
Yeah,
Betty
the other
Hill.
Betty from Barney and Betty Hill.
That's crazy.
So naturally, this was a very traumatic experience for Betty.
Yeah, I imagine so.
And they weren't descriptive as much about how she was acting, but they could tell that this was very intense. So they actually stopped the second therapy there. Like, even though not as much happened.
For me, if this happened to me, the aliens would either have to A, tie me down.
But they have control of you. Like,
or B, very much, or sedate me. I have to be sedated.
Well, but they're already controlling you. Like, she can't move. She's frozen.
You're right.
Which is, it's like mental tie down.
Good for them. They would have got me, I guess.
So that was the end of that hypnotic therapy session. So the next session took place on June 18th, 1977. So about like 2 weeks later. Here's a quote from Betty as she went back into her trance, picking up at this moment. Quote, "I was feeling pain from the needle, and they put their hand on my forehead and on the top of my head, and it took some of the pain away. I don't know why they had to do that in the first place. I asked them, why do you have to do such a thing as this? I complained that they had said that they were only going to have to measure me for light, and this is not that kind of test. And they said it's very important that they should do this, but they wouldn't explain why. And the other one is coming over by him with some kind of thing in his hands. It looks like paper, webbed paper, or a sort of a roll. He opened it up a little bit to show him. Quazga's looking at it. They still have that thing up my nose, and he's looking at this thing, and they're pulling it out a bit. It makes me feel dizzy having that thing up there. He's saying it's not going to be much longer. He's still looking at that web-like thing, whatever it is, and they're talking about something, and he's pointing at something, and now the other man or the other being or whatever he is taking it and rolling it up, and he's turning it to me. They're going to take the thing out. I hope it doesn't hurt. He's taking it out now. They took it out, and it looks like there's some kind of ball on the end of it, something on the end of it, a little thing, whatever it was, on the end of the needle." Unquote.
I don't like that at all. That's terrible.
So Betty described this needle as actually removing something from her nasal cavity.
Though that's not what they said they were doing.
No.
They said they were measuring light. So I think they lied.
Well, it depends what light means to them.
I don't trust aliens, man. I don't trust them.
Yeah, it almost to me feels like, what is your makeup? Are you worthy for what we're about to do?
You can just never understand.
No, I'd be freaking out. I'm not justifying what they did to her by any means.
No. You just can't understand their intentions. That's all I mean. It's just, you can't.
So the entities huddle, and they were discussing her physical examination, or she assumed that they were. And then they tell her that they're going to measure her for procreation, which is what she believes was the needle going into the navel. She could feel the needle in her stomach moving around. The entity again was touching her head to relieve the pain and the pressure, and she just began sobbing and frantically pleading for them to stop and to do no more tests.
Yeah.
And very soon after this outburst, they took the needle out, and Betty had the sensation that the other entities wanted to continue testing, But Quazga actually pushed back and was like, no, she's good. We've done enough. Like, that's it. We're good.
Quazga went on to actually start the Humanity Protection League.
Yeah, he's like, no, they don't.
The HPL, if you will.
They're fine. We don't need to do this to them.
Like, the tests are pretty invasive. They're pretty funny, but they're pretty invasive.
Alien lipstick is no longer tested on humans.
Wow. Wow. We've made some true achievements.
So the testing was done. And for a moment, it appeared that the entities were just silently staring at her. But then movement caught her eye. Something above her was moving. It was something coming down from the ceiling. And it looked like a giant eyeball. And she kind of determined it was a lens, like a camera.
Sure.
But it looked like a giant eye. And it went all the way down to her stomach, like right by her stomach. And Betty's terrified. Like she just had needles in her nose and her stomach. She's like, what is this thing going to do? Please do not penetrate my body. Thankfully, all it did was hover right above her stomach. Then the eye thing lifted, followed by her floating up over the table and then back into standing position by the door.
At this point, she's just like, sure.
Like, yeah,
sure.
Here for the ride.
But like, you should just let her get up. You didn't have to do that to her. God damn it.
She was returned to the dressing room where she was permitted to put her original clothes back on. And once she was dressed, the door whooshed open and they entered this very long corridor. And at this point, she's floating, like back to this corridor. And she believes at this point that she's left the craft. It's like this very long, dark corridor. And it's she didn't say like the airport people mover, but it feels like you're on a track, but there's nothing physically holding you on the track. Like that's how it feels. Like you're just kind of like gliding in a row, like a railway. And again, she feels like at this point, I'm no longer on the spaceship. She said her head began to feel really heavy and strained to keep her head up. And she ended up in another well-lit room with glass-like chairs and was asked to sit down. And she was assured that nothing was going to harm her. As she sat down, a transparent enclosure came over her. So it's like you're sitting in this chair and this like body outline, like plastic wrap, like
that's scary.
Oh yeah, like especially if you're claustrophobic, just kind of like comes over her. And she starts feeling really, really cold, like cold, intense sensations of cold. And again, they're like, you're fine. We're not going to harm you.
Yeah, but they're not in front of her. They're
around her.
Okay.
But she can see, it's clear, but she's like encased and she's freezing. And she also had like one of her descriptors was it felt like moisture was leaving her body, which were mostly made of water. So
that's true.
It's a weird thing to feel, I imagine.
Well, I sweat a lot, so I get it.
And a few minutes later, Betty is lifting up in a sitting down position, and she was told that she will be immersed in a liquid. And naturally, that terrified Betty.
She's like, please let me go home.
I'm not a good swimmer. So 3 tubes descended from the top of the room. And after the needles, Betty's like, I'm not down with these tubes. She's freaking out. She's like, I'm gonna drown. Like you guys don't know how my body's gonna react to water. You're gonna kill me. So they told her to keep her eyes closed and that she would be okay. And one tube went in her mouth, and the other tubes went up her nostrils.
I wasn't trying to joke about Fire in the Sky, but reminds me of Fire in the Sky.
And the next thing she knows is this gray liquid is filling over. It's pouring over her head, and as this gray, like watery substance is filling up her chair, she gets this soothing, like pulsing feeling that's just like rhythmically going throughout her body. And through her mouth tube, she's kind of like fed this sweet syrup. She said it tasted really good. And it gave her a comforting sensation. So she's filled up in this gray liquid. She can't see. She's completely submerged. She's breathing through these tubes in her nose and her mouth, and the mouth tube fed her this sweet substance.
It's gently trickling down.
In her mind, she's thinking, maybe, and I don't know if this is after the fact or in the moment, but is this liquid shielding my body while traveling? Are we traveling somewhere right now, and this liquid is keeping my body here?
I kind of understand that, yeah.
Especially because she was feeling cold.
Yeah.
Like originally. So
because I was wondering if they went to space. If she was in space, she would be cold.
Yeah. So now the liquid is draining. And once the liquid drained, she was free. She opened her eyes. She could see 2 aliens in front of her with strange black hoods over their heads. And they glided through another dark tunnel. One thing that jumped out to her, she could see these aliens' shiny suits illuminating in kind of like the darkness. And her arms and her legs began to feel really heavy again as they approach what look like a glass or like a mirror. And she's seeing it ahead of them and they're gliding. She can't control it. It's like you're on a roller coaster ride, like you're just moving. So mentally, she's like, I'm bracing for impact. But, you know, like the door, you go through it. Yeah. I don't even know why it's there. You're just going through, unless it's like teleport or like a hole. You know what I mean? Like
imagine this morning, you wake up in your home outside of Boston.
Nah.
And then by 6 p.m., you're submerged in liquid, traveling down a rail, surrounded by aliens in another galaxy.
Yeah, I mean, it's about right.
It feels so surreal. The details are so crazy at this point, too.
Yeah, this is probably the most detailed alien abduction story we've had on the podcast.
It's up there.
So after going through this dark corridor, she entered a place that she described as the atmosphere as a vibrating red color. So it's like red. She said it was almost like being in complete infrared light. And as they're still gliding, it's like they're on a track, but there's no physical thing. But she's in, single file. She's gliding, and they're approaching these two square-like buildings, and they almost look like cement structures, but they're cement buildings. But it was what was on the buildings that like made her heart skip a little bit with fear. As she got closer, she saw that all over these buildings were like these little creatures. Crawling on these buildings, they were like these little things with bug eyes. They had skinny arms, skinny legs, and they just moved in every direction. They were headless. Coming from the body were like two stalks, and on the end of the stalks were like bulbous eyes.
Okay. Wow.
It makes me think of like bugs. Like imagine like ants. The way that she describes them moving makes me think of like when you look at a colony of ants and they're just like every direction, like everywhere, moving all at once, and you're just like alien bugs. But I mean, they're bigger than like an ant, but still just like...
It's very scary.
So thankfully, they kept gliding past these creatures and these two structures further into this red place. And eventually, she saw a circular membrane up ahead, and they passed through with ease. And when they went through it, she found herself in a green atmospheric place. They went from red to green. I wouldn't be able to see either. I'm colorblind. I'm red-green colorblind, as a matter of fact.
You're like, these both are gray.
And once they got through that membrane into the green atmosphere, the aliens took their black hoods off. Maybe they just didn't want to look at those spooky bug things
or
either.
Maybe it's like sunglasses. Yeah. Like that color, that
the red.
That almost infrared light is like, it hurts her eyes.
They looked at her like, oh shit, we forgot to give her one. That's pretty bad, wasn't it?
She's going blind.
So everything's green. And to one side, she saw this like fish-like, bird-like creature.
Sure.
There is fog-like haze around. There are plants, more buildings. In the world, as she traveled, it went from like green to like brighter green, brighter green, brighter green. It got brighter the further they glided. And so this track, they're not on the track. They're kind of above this black track, but where they're gliding, it went up in the air. And she had a really hard time explaining because it was already up, but now it went even more up. And she looked down and she saw like a pyramid. There was like a pyramid structure, not a perfect pyramid. Like she couldn't describe how one of the walls was different than the other ones because for us shapes, that makes no sense. But she floated over a pyramid-like structure.
I'm just going with all this, yeah.
And in the distance, she saw more buildings. And in her mind, she was kind of like, sure, like I'm visiting an alien city right now.
What was her first hint?
I don't know, but I mean, isn't that a weird conclusion to come to regardless? I feel like you could show me an alien city, but I feel like I'd have to like say, I'd be like, I'm in an alien, because I'm like, if I went to San Francisco tomorrow, I'd have that like, I'm in San Francisco.
Yeah, no, I'd have that same moment.
But now it's like, I'm in an alien city.
Yeah, when I went overseas, I was like, wow, I'm on another place on the earth.
Yeah.
But the idea of being on another alien planet, city, is so far beyond our comprehension, I think.
Like, you don't want to know what the eggs cost here.
6 Quazars.
So suddenly in front of her, and her alien escorts, she sees this huge crystal structure, like giant, brilliant prisms. And she was in awe of the colors. And here's a quote from Betty. Quote, "And I'm coming up before a bright light crystals, bright light, clear crystals that have rainbows all in it. It was all crystal all around. I don't know what it is. I don't know why, but I'm afraid. I want to go back. And the bright light up ahead, I want to go back. But they're taking me through these crystals. That bright light is up ahead. We're stopping, and the two are getting off. And I'm just there before the light," unquote. So she kind of like stops up ahead, and there's like this crystal formation. And then she notices a form in front of this light. It's like a huge bird. And this is kind of the callback to like
the symbol,
the emblem on their thing. Yeah. And at the same time, she notices this bird in front of the crystals. It starts getting hot, like incredibly hot. Like the heat just started distressing Betty. And this is a moment again where they're like, okay, she's starting to freak out a little bit. Let's time out. Session ended. They're like, she's getting distressed from this heat.
Mm-hmm.
We'll bring her back. We're not going to let her get away with it, but session's over. So that's when that session ended. So her next session picked up on June 23rd, 1977. So I think that's like less than a week later. So once she's brought back to that moment through the hypnotic regression, here's a quote regarding seeing this bird-like creature. Quote, "I'm standing before this large bird. It's very warm. And the bird almost looks like an eagle to me. It has a white head and there's light in the back of it. Real white light. It's very, very big and it has brown features and it's hot. It's very hot in here. The bird is just standing there and it looks like it's holding back the light somehow. And I'm standing in front of it. It's just standing there and I see gold specks flying around like tiny gold specks and it's so hot. The specks just keep flying around and the bird just stands there. The light keeps sending out rays and it keeps getting bigger and bigger and the rays keep getting bigger and bigger." Unquote. And so it's getting intense again and she's like getting ready to scream because the heat is so intense and she's begging to leave. But then suddenly everything cooled down and there was a small little fire in front of Betty. And the bird was gone, completely gone.
Okay.
And kind of like a phoenix, you could say.
Yeah, you could say that.
Her hands went from the sensation of pain to feeling the strange vibration, and the fire diminished. And instead of the flames, she now saw a glowing coal in its place. And the coal went from a reddish color to gray. And then the strangest thing, as if that wasn't already very strange, is the coals that turned to gray transformed into a big gray worm. And she turned from the worm when she heard one of the aliens speak in her mind. And they told her she was chosen. And she said, "Chosen for what?" And they told her she was chosen to see their world. And Betty asked again if they were God. They said, "I'll show you as your time goes by." That was the reply she was given. So Betty asked again why she was chosen, why she needed to see this world, why to see this worm and this hot bird. And the alien told her it's not time yet to tell, that she would find out soon enough and have faith. And Betty said, "It is true. I have faith in God. I have faith in Jesus Christ. Praise God. There's nothing that can harm me."
Do you think her father and her kids at home frozen in place still? Look at the watch like, it's been a while.
No, I don't think they have any consciousness at all. I think
No.
they're just existing. They're vibing. So Betty was told it was time for her to go back. They told her not to be afraid, to feel comfort, and it's her fear that makes her feel these things because they would never harm her. It's not reality. And the alien was quoted as saying, they're saying her fear is not reality, not what she was experiencing was.
Okay.
Like the only reason you're afraid is because you feel afraid. There's
Cool.
no reason to feel afraid. Like you're choosing to feel afraid, so stop it.
Okay.
Like it's on you to feel
okay.
you're feeling afraid because there's no reason to. You know what I mean? It's like if someone was like, "I'm afraid to sit on that chair," and you're like, "Well, the only reason you're afraid to sit on the chair is because you're afraid. Because if you go sit on the chair, nothing's gonna happen."
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like
yeah, no. But instead of like replace the chair with being taken by aliens to another planet.
Well, to them, this is probably like a Tuesday to them, man.
That's
this
true.
is like go pick up the dry cleaning,
Yeah.
get some Swensons on the way home. That's an Akron restaurant.
Or like a more like realistic example is like getting onto a plane. Like for me, I actually feel some anxiety getting onto a plane, but like a pilot, that's every day.
Well, but theoretically, the plane could crash and you could die. I think in their mind, nothing could go wrong.
Yeah, no, I was just trying to bring it to Earth with the closest example I could give it.
So the alien said, "I can release you, but you must realize yourself of that fear through my son." And when he said "through my son," that phrase had a really profound effect and impact on Betty because for her it was like a religious experience. It was
Yeah.
like the son she took,
She's like, Jesus.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So she like started crying. Like it was like this was probably
Damn.
the biggest religious like most spiritual moment of her life up to this point.
Yeah. Okay.
Because to her, she met, and maybe she did, but you know what I mean? Like she met people of God.
Yes. In her mind, she did do that. Yeah.
So now she's going out the way she came. And so in her mind, it's like, okay, so these angels brought me here, and now we're going back. So they went single file again, and they were gliding, and her legs still felt very heavy. At this point, she's thinking like, because now it's like, I think it's like she has time to think because they're on their way back. She was like, maybe the reason my legs feel so tired and heavy, it has something to do with whatever is keeping me in place gliding. You know what I mean? Like if she can't see it and she can't explain it. It's not a physical structure. It's not like a rail or like a tram car. But whatever force is making her glide and keeping her levitating, she's feeling that effect on her legs, and that's why it feels so heavy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like an invisible thing. That
Like we can get behind that.
It's like a thestral from Harry Potter.
So she traveled back over the pyramid, through the green atmosphere, through the red atmosphere.
Saw those bugs again?
Yeah.
Said deuces.
Yep, past the cement-looking buildings and the creatures. Here's actually a quote from Betty.
I actually wonder if they're like literal drones. Will they do like busy work?
Maybe. I could be very wrong, but to me they feel like bugs, like alien bugs.
Well, maybe, but maybe they employ them.
They get paid. What did you call the eggs? Quazgas or what?
Quazgorgs. I don't know.
Quazgorgs. I don't know.
Yeah.
Here's a quote from Betty. Quote, they just bug their eyes out at me and they crawl up and down those walls, in and out of those windows. They're just all over the place, big bug-eyed, and they can move their eyes any old place. Unquote. She didn't like them. I don't like them either.
I'm not a big fan, really.
So soon she's going back through the same mirror-like construct, plunge in the darkness down that tunnel. At the end of the tunnel, they enter a well-lit room. She's summoned to sit in a metallic chair with strange buttons on it. At one point, while sitting in the chair, she had her eyes closed and she felt 2 jolts go through her body in this chair. I don't know. That happened. And then, as before, she was enclosed. And she knows the drill now. The tubes come down. She puts the one in the mouth, 2 in the nose, the gray liquid. She gets more of that delicious tasting syrup, which
she was excited
gives
for.
her a soothing comfort feeling. I feel like it's like a drug. It's like where space traveling is really cold and miserable. So here's this thing to just make you feel good.
That's probably the best way to describe that. I think that's probably pretty accurate.
Once it drained, she recalled many of the same doors and pathways that she took when she entered the spacecraft. And as the door opened, in comes Quazga wearing his best silver suit. And he reached up, and he put 2 hands on Betty's shoulders.
He said, uppies.
And she would wee. No, he put his hands on Betty's shoulders and he said, child, you must forget for a while. And Betty noticed that one of his eyes glowed white, while the other one, like before, had the black circle of the ball in it.
That's very cool. Actually, that's a really cool image.
He told Betty that he was going to give her formulas, and until mankind finds and understands those, he's not going to give any more. And he told her that the human race would not believe this experience and this encounter until much time has passed.
No,
that they love the human race and they want to help us, but they cannot help until we accept it. That love is the greatest of all, and they don't want to hurt anyone. They don't want to let mankind continue in the footsteps that we're heading. We must study nature. We will find many of the answers we seek if we study nature. Mankind will only find answers through spirit, not flesh and blood. And finally, he told her that he has given her many secrets, which will be revealed when the time is right, but for now, she needs to go and rest. So, she went through a room with a thick purplish pink light. Sounds kind of like the beginning. And then through another door, the big round elevator, another door open, and there it was. The outside, night air, and her backyard.
Wow.
And that was the end of that session. There was one more session, kind of like a follow-up. But I thought that maybe that was it. They're like, all right, cool, you're back. But they did one more. So June 25th. So that would be...
It's like the whole month of June.
So that was when her next session was. They picked right back up. They're like, all right, you saw your backyard. Let's go. So she entered her home, and 2 alien entities accompanied her. Yeah. And one had a very large white ball in its hand. Just this big white ball. And past the alien, past the white ball, she noticed that her father shuffled into the room. And the entity with the white ball turned towards her father. And it was almost like the white ball could influence him. Because he wasn't really conscious. Mm-hmm. He was walking, but he seemed to be in a trance. And he paid no mind to Betty. He paid no mind to the aliens. He just was like walking, went by, and he's like, he's gone. Not like disappeared, gone, but like he went in a different room. So the aliens asked Betty to follow them into the living room. And there Betty saw her family completely frozen like statues. It was really disturbing. She said Becky had like a smile frozen on her face.
I don't like that.
It was kind of disturbing. But in her head, Betty heard and was told that they were going to let her rest now and that she's not going to remember these events for a very long time. And she was reassured that her family's safe. They were never harmed. They're not going to be harmed. And very much like herself and the aliens, once that was said, everyone in her family unfroze and they stood up and they went single file, followed the leader, and they all went upstairs.
Oh my God.
And she could hear like the floor creaking as they went upstairs to their rooms. And then one of the entities took Betty upstairs and she was taken to her bed and coaxed into the bed, crawled up, tucked in, and she fell into a deep, restful sleep. And she awoke to normal, cheerful sounds of her family. And she felt, again, this is in the 60s, as though it was just a really weird, terrifying dream. Like,
yeah.
what? Now, obviously, you didn't remember most of these details, but just felt like something was wrong. Something was hazy. And so she admits that she didn't check her body because she didn't know.
Right.
So
she didn't know to do that.
She didn't look at her navel. She didn't look at her nose to see if there's blood vessels broken or anything like that. Because in that time, she's like, was this just a dream? There was one strange thing, though, is they said, now that they know where it happened, there's a section of their backyard where the lights and the ship was, where the grass would not grow again.
Never grew again. Like radiation.
Yeah. So there are more details. Again, this is like a 250, 300-page book. So if you really liked this episode and you want to hear more details, you want to hear like more verbatim quotes from Betty and Becky, and then there's still like this is the story, but like the second half of the book is like their research, their findings, what they find real, what they don't find real, the critical aspect of it. This is already a long episode, so I'm just going to tell you the story portion. But again, if you like this, the book called The Andreasson Affair, the documented investigation of a woman's abduction aboard a UFO. Again, 100% of the credit, all of the content, all the information. I give it all to that book. It was awesome. It was a really good read. There's drawings. I'll probably try and put some on social media.
And
but
that story gave me shivers.
In the hypnotic regression, they had her draw things that she was seeing inside the spaceship, their hands, everything like that. So if you like the book, check it out. But with that said, let's get to the discussion. All right, save my voice.
I have so many theories about this. To me, this feels like the story of Betty feels like aliens, yes, Andy themselves into something. I also see it as like a human's tint on an alien civilization. Like it's apparent that she is this Christian woman and she put this Christian tint over something extraordinary that happened to her that did not necessarily have to be religious.
But it fits her frame of reference.
Yes.
Like for this to exist, they're angels. This is of God. Also, to a certain extent, it probably is coping.
Yes.
Like how terrifying would this be if this isn't of God in her world? You know what I mean? Or anyone's world.
Anyone's. But also, like, she gave them the manual. She gave them the study guide for all the answers she wants. When she gave them the book, right? The Bible.
They're like,
this is what, we're okay, I guess. And they went with it. They were able to use those things, extrapolate possibly to what she saw to an extent. And she was also able to color it in her mind what she wanted.
In their defense, though.
Who's there? The aliens?
Yeah, in the aliens' defense. Like, think about humans interacting with a child, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, not the best.
A different species.
Not the best example, but like a thunderstorm.
Yeah.
And you're like, it's God's bowling. You're talking down to him, but you're like why freak him out? You know, for the sake of just doing it. You know what I mean?
You can't be like, oh, it's just electrical discharge. That's very devastating.
Yeah, and if you get hit by it, you might die. You know what I mean? It's like it's God's bowling. So for them, it might be like, there's a world where they really do mean her no harm. They really are just trying to help and trying to do whatever they're doing. Like, there's a whole angle where they're bad, and we can get to that. But this angle can still exist where they're not of God, but they were using that to soothe her. It's like,
Yeah.
Like, we can't truly tell her what we're doing because we don't want to reveal too much because you can't take it. We want to help, and she's not going to let us help if we don't tell her we're of God.
Yeah.
So for her to cope and be comfortable, because we're not going to harm her, and for us to get what we need, let's play along.
Yeah, I don't think these aliens come from a world where they were baptized. Like, you know, like,
No, I don't think they're of God.
No.
I'm saying they saw that as like, it's like the honey syrup.
It's
the honey syrup they gave her. It's like,
yeah.
we don't want to freak her out. We don't want to hurt her. And if by telling her we're of God, because there's also, you could make the argument that in our world of God, you know, love your neighbor, all this good stuff. And they're like, if we believe the same thing, so if you want to call us that, cool. If you want to call us that because we have the same goals and we have the same beliefs, that's fine. And we'll skirt it when you ask us. But it's not like, it's like, if that'll make you feel comfortable and allow us to do what we need to do and we're not going to hurt you.
Let's go with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, and.
That's the positive side. And I like the positive side, by the way.
Yeah. I don't necessarily have the same view of the positive side here. I mentioned it earlier in this episode. You cannot know what these beings want. You can't trust what they say. You cannot trust. You don't know their intentions. Now, they do say at the end and throughout the whole thing, like, we're not going to hurt you. We want to help you. That's what they say.
So if this, now let's do a bad spin. Let's say this is all with evil or egotistical or like selfish intentions. What do you think they were doing?
Now, to a certain extent, I think the answer is pretty easy. It's just experimentation, trying to understand human anatomy, trying to perfect the ability to either breed, manipulate, test genetics on humans. But to the point where they take her to this place, that is a little fuzzier for me. I don't know why they would do that. Unless it's truly just a test to see if humans can handle the exposure to their flight, their world, their radiation, their energy, just testing it on her.
Right, because you could say at face value they're saying you're fine, but they could just be saying like, we hope you're fine.
Yeah,
like, we'll find out if you're fine.
Them saying you're fine to me that means nothing.
I don't think you could. Now, good and evil is such a human thing.
No, I don't think they're evil. I think they don't care.
Right, because if they're evil, you could say they would just kill her.
Yeah,
because it means nothing, and maybe they would have allowed her to die.
Yes. Also, I think their medicine is way more advanced.
I just mean like they did bring her back and her family back fine. Like no one actually got hurt.
I think they are truly chaotic neutral. They just do not care. It's also terrifying. They just froze a whole family for however long she was gone. Why didn't they just let them go to bed or whatever?
I don't know. Timing, I guess. They could have did that later. I'm not sure. But I don't know. Like, I mean, even like Quazga being like, no, we're not testing her anymore. It felt like he was sticking up for her. Now, that could have been her perspective.
Even if he did say it like that, that's also could be a way to gain trust.
Manipulative.
Yes.
They didn't need... Okay, let me put it this way. Okay, she had no willpower, right?
Yeah.
You agree based on the story that she had no control over everything?
Right.
There was no need for them to soothe her. They could have done every bit of this experimentation. They could have brought her to the planet. They could have done all of this with her being absolutely terrified out of her mind.
Devil's advocate on the other side is I'd rather not listen to an animal scream.
Yeah, but if they don't care, they don't care. You know what I mean? Tighten the black hood. You know what I mean? Like they went out of their way countless times to reassure her. I feel like if you just truly don't care, you're not going to reassure. You're just going to be like, deal with it. Or like, shut up. Or I bet they could find a way to mute her.
Just gag her.
It feels like there was too much effort given to making her at least feel like things were going to be okay.
Like I don't know. To me, it feels like the easiest way to keep her quiet. I think on this particular angle, I think we'd have to agree to disagree.
Yeah, but you get my point, where it's like if they truly didn't care, it seemed like it was an excessive amount of be like, you're going to be okay. Don't worry. You're going to be okay. It's not going to hurt. Here's this soothing honey stuff. It's going to be okay. Don't freak out. We love you. Your family's okay. It feels like a lot of effort given to making someone be like, it's all good if you were just like, if you didn't care about their mental state or that, and they followed through with it as well. Like no one got hurt.
I think it's hard to know what they think. You can't know what they think.
But we can only go by what happened.
I
And what I'm
guess.
saying, and I mean, none of this can be real based on hypnotic regression.
I
don't
just
know.
don't trust it. I just don't trust it. That's what it is. I just don't trust it.
I mean, I'm not the one out there in space getting, drowning in gray liquid with tubes up my mouth. So
Yeah.
easy for me to say it's all good because
Yeah.
it ended up being all good. But
I think that was very happenstance for her. So, yeah, you mentioned hypnotic regression was heavily involved in this.
all the details,
And
every
it's-
session.
That's been pretty suspect for a long time in psychology. The details, I'm not entirely sure why. I think we said it's like you can easily lead.
Yeah, if you have a certain goal, you get people in a compromised state, and you're like, it was hot, wasn't it? Are you feeling hot? And she's like,
Yeah.
I was feeling hot.
But
You said
also-
like a bird. It looked like a bird?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it was a bird. I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm
No,
saying
but
like
you could see those. It's easy to lead in that scenario, but also the way this trip ended up going, I feel like if it was being led, the psychologist didn't know where it was going for a while.
he's
He was just like,
okay.
yeah, and then they took you on this place, and then you saw a sphere, and
There were times where, like, when a session would end and they'd pick up right back where it was left off.
yeah,
They would ask her the details, and she was able to say them the exact same way as the previous session. I'm not saying that obviously makes it true.
no, but it does help.
It's really tough because I want to take this when I rate this on our believability scale. I want to judge it based on what happened, not the way that we retrieve the information, and that's not really fair because the hypnotic regression is such a huge component to it. But it's like any story we get could be fake.
That's true.
Like from listener submissions to anything, it's like typically because we're entertainment and we're not like nothing's life or death on this podcast. It's not like a doctor where it's like if you get a detail wrong, someone dies. Typically, what Charlie and I do is we don't give the where the information came from as much attention as what the information is. This is a little different because it's literally coming from hypnosis.
Yeah.
So I think it's good to consider that. But just for the sake of entertainment and just it's not fun to do a story like this and be like, I think it was made up. Or I
Right.
think the source of information is fake.
There are also witnesses beforehand too. Oh, before we get into the actual believability,
Mhm.
I did want to mention, I do think it was interesting they came into her life while her husband was away,
Yeah.
while he was out of commission. She had her father, but she didn't have that protect her husband type in her life right now. And
Vulnerable.
vulnerable, very much you could say, because she was the head of a household of
Seven.
several people.
7 kids and 2 elderly. I mean, I don't say like they're elderly,
They're older folks.
but assuming. Yeah.
So I do find that fascinating.
It's also ballsy. Like, we're going to abduct a house of 10. We're going to take you from 10. They're going to show you
Yeah.
our powers.
But I do tend to believe people in most things, and there's a lot going on in the story. There are witnesses beforehand. Like
Yeah.
the father saw something, the daughter saw something.
One time we recorded this tonight, I mentioned how, I think it was the other one, unfortunately, how we believe in alien abductions. They just typically don't go this detailed.
Yeah.
Like you and I believe in aliens.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's a simple alien abduction story, we're kind of like, well,
So,
we believe in
easy.
aliens.
Yeah.
So just because we got all these details, it still fits in the scope of you and I believing in aliens.
It just felt like she built this whole story. But I do think that there is at least many grains of truth in this. And I do think it happened. I go believable.
I go viable.
It's fair.
So that is our episode, The Alien Abduction of Betty Andreasson.
Good golly, Miss Molly. That was a lot. What a tale.
What's cool about this is like, I love the different perspectives. Like when we did the Sault Ste. Marie, and we mentioned that one a lot. But when you see like a different side to a haunting, it's like this is so much more detailed than so many other alien
It is just
abductions.
very detailed.
And it's not like I went in the spaceship and they flew me around Saturn, and then I got out and got a moon rock, and then I got back on the ship and we came back and it was a good time.
I quite like that story. Though.
Yeah, but it's just like, okay, and this is like there's drawings.
I think the interesting thing is like the one you just referenced. That one, he was obviously manipulated by the aliens, but this one you almost can't tell their intentions, and it's very hard to find that like Is it good? Is it evil?
Now, there could be moments that were replaced, but it feels like, well, technically you could say the whole thing was replaced because they didn't remember it.
Yeah.
But in the one I just referenced with like the Saturn, you're like, they gave him that memory.
Yes.
Now, maybe if he did hypnotic regression, he'd see something differently.
I think he would.
In terms of what was pulled from the hypnotic regression for Betty, I don't think most of that was replaced. I think she said exactly what she went through.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I do think that she colored it in her religion. And if you're a Christian, you listen to this, you're like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Or if you're a Christian, like, that doesn't make any sense at all. I think you could look at it either way and have your own perspective on that. But someone who's like used to be kind of like when I was a kid, I don't see any of this. I see it as her tinting it with her Christian views.
But I mean, naturally, that just makes sense.
Yeah, if this happened to me, I would probably tint it with my already beliefs. It would probably be very science heavy.
Well, not even that. You've already tinted this by your untrusting of aliens.
That's true.
Like her experience for you is tinted by I don't trust aliens. They're obviously up to no good.
Yeah. It would be.
We tint our whole life with our own biases.
Yes.
And she just believes in a higher power. She believes in God. So naturally, if these beings are these capable, they're of God.
Yeah.
And
that's what it is. Anyway, it's just such a fascinating story.
Yeah, I think it'll be cool to see what other alien abduction stories we have and find ways to relate it back to this one in their experiences.
It is really cool that, not cool, but this almost the same thing, almost word for word, happened to Betty Hill. That's crazy.
With the in the stomach and everything, it's around the same time too, 60s.
And they did forget a lot of that too. So maybe they also went to this planet.
Those audio tapes, because that was
horrifying.
Yeah, but the same thing. They went under a hypnotic regression.
They did, yeah.
It's a popular thing then. I don't think you can find as many LinkedIn Indeed jobs now.
Probably not.
But hey, if you liked this episode and you want to let us know about it, if you're listening on Apple, you can leave a 5-star review on Apple. You don't even have to leave a comment. We like the comments. We read the comments with each other. But and we also post them on social media, by the way.
True.
If you leave a comment, we will post it on our Instagram, on stories and Facebook stories. But if you just want to leave the 5-star review, you don't want to say anything, I do that sometimes. If I go to a restaurant or an app, right? Like, like, are you enjoying this financial baking app? Like, yeah, I love it.
It's my favorite thing.
You want to leave a comment and say, I wish I had more. It's just like you leave 5 stars and it still helps.
It does.
Helps
a lot.
Or if you're listening on Spotify, you can comment on every single episode. Just go crazy with your comments. Here's a couple comments we got on Spotify from our last episode, which was the Lizzie Borden haunting house.
Haunted house of Lizzie Borden.
Amber said, I'm from Fall River. It's refreshing that someone would talk about Lizzie Borden instead of the drugs, crime, and sleazy former mayor. If you guys ever stay at the Lizzie Borden house, you have to try the Portuguese food.
I will do that if I ever do.
Yana said, I'm glad you guys are being skeptical and critical of some stories' experiences. It's healthy to have some rationality in paranormal investigations.
I think we are pretty...
And we don't investigate, but we are fairly critical, even though we're like, yeah, this probably happened with this thing. And Cryptid Quests said, first time listening to the podcast, really good. Also found this podcast from Monsters Among Us. Shout out Monsters Among Us. Derek and your wife, your whole team is awesome. Go check out Monsters Among Us if you're not familiar.
Appreciate you a lot.
Yeah.
And if you enjoy the episode and you want some more, we mentioned up top, this episode and all our episodes are ad-free on Patreon. And also there's so many more things going on there, like horror movie reviews, horror movie watch parties, quizzes, Remembering the Bizarre, quizzes for current episodes coming out. There's a lot of fun, engaging activities that we have on there.
And if you like the episodes, we do bonus mini encounter episodes where we just pick a topic and we literally just go through encounters. It's a lot of fun stuff. If you like the podcast and want a little bit more, go check that out. But we appreciate you listening. As always, I'm Tyler.
And I'm Charlie.
And catch us next week on Believing the Bizarre.
A podcast as bizarre as you are.